Hey, vibrant gardeners, welcome back to the show. I'm so glad you're here today. This one has been on my mind for a while. I want to say something before we dive in. This episode is for everyone. If you're brand new to gardening and you're just starting to think about what your yard could be, this is for you. If you've been gardening for years and looking to level up what you already have, this is for you as well. If you're deep into permaculture principles and you want to see how those translate into a front yard that actually works in a neighborhood setting, this is absolutely for you. And if you've been scrolling through inspiration for months and you just don't know how to make it work in your actual yard, you are in the right place. I've been seeing so much front yard garden inspiration lately. I mean, everywhere, on Instagram, on Pinterest, in my neighborhood, in conversations with people who are just now catching the gardening bug. And in the questions I get from long-time gardeners who are ready to do something intentional with their front space, there are a few trends I keep seeing over and over. Foodscaping, where your front yard is basically a beautiful edible garden that your neighbors stop and stare at. Cottage gardens, that overflowing romantic, slightly wild look with flowers spilling literally over every edge. Wild native gardens, where you basically replace a lawn or most of the lawn entirely with plants that belong here, that actually lived here before you did, that feed pollinators that require almost nothing from you. And permaculture inspired designs, layered, ecological, designed to mimic natural systems that build soil health over time. Honestly, I love all of it. I love that people are rethinking their yard, what it's supposed to be, and I love that conversation is shifting. Whether you're a complete beginner saying, what if I actually planted something here? Or a seasoned gardener saying, it's time to make this space intentional. All of that energy is valid and all of it belongs in this conversation. But here's the part that doesn't always come up. Especially for those of us in big cities or suburbs, like right here in Houston Gulf Coast. Maybe you have HOA with rules about what you can and can't plant. Maybe your soil is a certain way, your drainage is a certain way, your shade situation is complicated. Maybe you just don't have the time or bandwidth to go fully wild. That's completely okay. So today I want to reframe this conversation. I truly believe you don't have to choose between beautiful and functional. You don't have to pick between what's trendy and what actually works for your life. Today I'm going to show you how to create a front yard that's still beautiful, still functional, still pollinator friendly, but that actually works for you, your neighborhood, your schedule, your life. Let's get into it. I want to start with something I hear all the time. That front yard gardening is full of impossible trade-offs. People feel like they have to pick between pretty and productive. Like if your garden looks good, it can't also be growing food. Or if it's growing food, it's going to look like a mess. They feel like they have to pick between native and tidy. Like if you plant Texas natives, your yard is going to look like it just gave up. Or if you keep things looking neat, you must be using plants that are useless to wildlife. And there's this HOA version that you either have total creative freedom or you stay in your HOA's good graces, that you cannot have both. And I want a little bit pushback on this because none of those things are actually in conflict. We just need a more layered way of thinking about the space. You don't need to go fully wild to support pollinators, and you don't need to just stick to boxwoods to keep things neat. Here's what I've seen in local gardens, in my own clients' yards. In the front yards, I actually admire the most. The most successful spaces find the middle ground. They are intentional, they are layered, they make smart decisions about what goes where and why. And if you're someone who's drawn to the permaculture principles, I see you. I want you to know that this approach is completely aligned. It's about designing systems that work with nature, that stacks function, and that every element serves multiple purposes. And that's beautiful and feeds pollinator and provides habitat and produces something edible. That is stacking functions. That is exactly what we are going for. The difference is we are doing it in a way that also works with the realities of a suburbia. HOA or no HOA. Permaculture also teaches to observe before we actually act, to really look at a space, understand its pattern, its exposure, sun, drainage, before we actually start planting. That's wisdom. That applies to every gardener at every level. And it's woven into thinking, into everything what we're going to be talking about today. So, whether you're a beginner, total beginner, or a veteran gardener ready to tackle your front yard and make it really sing, or someone who's been studying the permaculture principles and wants to bring those into a more visible space, this is all for you. A real practical approach to designing a front yard you're proud of. Every time you pull into the driveway. Okay, before we get into specific plans or layouts, I want to share my design philosophy with you, because this is the foundation everything else is built on. These are the 3 principles I come back to every single time. I'm thinking through a space, any space. Principle number 1 is work with your environment. In Texas and the Gulf Coast, we deal with extreme heat, humidity, clay soil, unpredictable rains and drought. Plant selection matters more than aesthetics alone. You can have the most beautiful design on paper, but if your plants can't handle our summers, you'll be replacing them every year. Working with your environment means choosing the plants that are built for the climate, letting that be your first filter before anything else. Principle 2 is every garden should support life. When I say life, I mean bees, butterflies, hummingbirds, and all the creatures that make your garden ecosystem actually function. And here's what I love about this principle. You don't actually have to have a massive yard or a fully native landscape to make a difference. Even small pockets of pollinator-friendly plants actually matter. Even one or two well-placed native plants can become a star on a pollinator's route through your neighborhood. Principle 3. Beauty and function together, not separately. Edible and ornamental can coexist. Structure and alive can coexist. What I don't want is for you to feel like your garden has to sacrifice one or the other. The best designs I've seen bring these together seamlessly, where something's beautiful and it's feeding a butterfly, or it's something you might harvest for a dinner. That's the sweet spot. We are not designing for Instagram, we are designing for real life. And real life in Houston means heat, humidity, or you have a full shade from a big live oak that has been basically killing all the plants you try and plant. It means your drainage is not perfect. It means you have a life actually outside of gardening. And sometimes your yard needs to work with you, not against you. When you design from these principles, work with your environment, and support life, bring beauty and function together, you end up with something that feels right. Not just looks right, and actually feels right every time you walk out your front door. Okay, let's talk plants now. Specifically, let's talk about how we can weave native pollinator-friendly plants into our yard without it feeling like overcommitment to a totally wild landscape. I know that's the fear, right? If I start planting natives, my yard is going to look like an abandoned lot. That's not what we're doing here. You don't need a full native garden to make an impact. Let me give you some of my favorite easy pollinator and easy plants that attract pollinators that work beautifully in a front yard and that actually looks intentional, not wild. Turk's cap. This one's absolutely underrated. I will never stop talking about it. It's a Texas native that loves our heat, handles spot shade beautifully. Hummingbirds are absolutely obsessed with it. It has this deep red swirled flower that's striking without being fussy. It's kind of plant that makes your garden look lush and established. Another one is Salvia grigi. This one blooms from spring all the way into fall, which is a really big deal in Texas. It's compact, it's heat tolerant, it's drought tolerant, it comes in red, pink, and coral. Bees love it, hummingbirds love it. It looks like it's really polished in a border or even in mixed planting. Another one I love is Coreopsis. It has bright yellow daisy-like flowers that bloom for months. It's cheerful, it's native, it self-seeds gently, and it's one of the best pollinator attractors you can actually plant. It's also just looks happy, which I think we all want our yards, especially front yards, to feel. Another one is Giardia, also called a blanket flower. If you want something that looks a little bit more designed, more intentional, the red and yellow pattern is beautiful. It literally blooms all summer and it is incredibly drought tolerant once established. Perfect for Houston front yard where sometimes you forget to water during the busy week. Another one is milkweed. If you have even a small pocket of space, I want you to consider milkweed. Not the tropical milkweed, but the native milkweed. It's a host plant for monarch butterflies. The plant monarchs needs to lay their eggs on. One of the native ones I like is the antelope horn milkweed. It's not the flashiest plant, but what it does in your garden ecosystem is remarkable. Another one I love is Texas sage. When it blooms, I love those lavender blooms, and the contrast with the silvery white leaves, foliage is beautiful. It's incredibly drought tolerant once established. It's native to Texas. It looks absolutely polished in a landscape. If you want something that's low maintenance and visually striking, Texas sage is hard to beat. Another one is Japan holly. Don't let the botanical name scare you. It's called Ilex vomitoria. It's one of those most underused plants in the landscape, and I'm always trying to champion it. It's native, it's evergreen, it provides berries that birds absolutely love through the winter months. You can use it as a hedge, a foundation planting, or even a specimen tree if you let it grow. It's also one of the most deer resistant and drought tolerant natives we have. It's extremely HOA-friendly because it trees as a traditional shrub while doing incredible ecological work. I also want to talk about other salvia species, not just Salvia greggii, because anything in the salvia family is one of the most pollinator powerful plant groups that practically any pollinator loves. The Farinacea, mealycup sage, or the coccinea, tropical sage, the native bees, honeybees, hummingbirds, they are all drawn to salvias like a magnet. Work a few different salvia varieties into your planting and you'll have something blooming almost year round. You should include Esperanza if you want drama. If you want your front yard to stop traffic, plant Esperanza. Those brightly yellow trumpet-shaped flowers are breathtaking. They bloom from summer all the way through fall, which is exactly when a lot of other plants are giving up in the heat. Hummingbirds and butterflies are obsessed with it. It can get large, up to even 8 feet in a good season. So give it space, let it be a focal point. It's the kind of plant that makes neighbors knock on your door and ask, "What is it?" And then there are what I call pollinator magnets. These are not all natives, but they do incredible work in your garden. Zinnias. Butterflies literally line up for them. And basil. It's one of my favorite herb to utilize in a garden, just because if I let it flower, the bees literally go bananas over it. It's also so beautiful when it blooms. Dill and fennel. These host the swallowtail butterfly caterpillars, and these feathery foliage adds wonderful texture. Even 20 to 30% of your plants being pollinator friendly can completely change your garden ecosystem. You don't have to rip out everything and start over. You don't have to commit to a full native landscape. Just start introducing these plants one by one, season by season, and watch what happens. Your garden will come alive in a way that feels almost magical. Okay, let's talk about foodscaping for just a little bit. I've been seeing this trend everywhere right now, and I have a lot of feelings about it. Foodscaping is the idea of integrating edible plants in your ornamental landscape. So instead of a separate vegetable garden in the back, your front yard has herbs, vegetables, and fruit woven together. The vision of it is gorgeous. The before and after photos are stunning. I completely understand why people are drawn to it. But sometimes it's not HOA friendly depending on your rules and how it's executed. It can look messy if it's not planned and maintained thoughtfully. Vegetable gardens have a shorter life cycle. They look great mid-season and can look rough at the end of season when plants are spent. Maintenance matters more in the front yard because everyone can actually see it. And I'm not saying that to discourage you. I'm saying it because I want your garden and front yard garden to actually bring you joy, not stress. So here's my balanced approach. Instead of fully foodscaping your front yard, think about integrating edibles strategically. I'm talking herbs as borders, decorative edibles like chard, a purple kale, or even colorful peppers, sometimes even okra. Containers near you. Another one of my favorite strategy is to integrate containers near your entry with vegetable plants. Beautiful pots with herbs, cherry tomatoes, colorful lettuces. It's intentional, it's contained, it's clearly a design choice, not an accident, and it keeps things manageable. The key of all of this is intention. It'll read as beautiful and creative instead of being messy, regardless of how productive it is. Okay, all right, let's talk HOA. I want to start by reframing how we think about them. I know HOA restrictions are so frustrating, especially when you have a vision for your garden and you're running against rules that feel very limiting. I get it, but I want to offer a different perspective. Design constraints can make you more creative, not less. When you have a select parameters to work with, you have to be extra intentional. And intentional gardens are better gardens. Instead of fighting the HOA, let's work with it. Here's how. Keep it clean with defined edges. And repeat plants. That makes it a designed look rather than random. There is a rhythm and pattern to it. And HOAs are much more comfortable with a garden that has pattern and rhythm. Use mulch as a finishing touch. A 2 to 3 inches layer of hardwood mulch around your plants instantly makes everything look more polished. It suppresses weeds, retains moisture, and signals maintenance and care. Another way is be intentional about height. Plant your taller plants in the back and shorter plants in the front. That makes it look architectural, intentional rather than random. Use pathways, raised beds, and structures where you can, if your HOA actually allows them, like stone border, symmetrical arrangement on either side of your front door. Structural elements signal design intent. They tell the viewers someone thought about this. That's all HOAs are looking for. You can have natives, you can have pollinators, you can have even edibles and still stay within your HOA guidelines. Fill it with structure and intentionality. That is the key. Okay, vibrant gardeners, before I let you go, I want to speak directly to you for a moment. If you've been thinking and feeling like it doesn't quite feel like you, if you've been collecting inspiration but haven't known how to make it work for your actual yard or your life or your neighborhood, I want you to know that that's exactly what I help people figure out. Your front yard doesn't have to follow a trend, it just has to work for you and still bring you joy every single day. The more gardens we grow, the more vibrant our communities become. Before you go, I have one small ask. And it actually has nothing to do with algorithms or downloads. If this episode made you think of one person, a friend, a neighbor, a fellow parent, or someone who's always said, I want to grow a garden, I want to grow my own vegetables and fruits, I just don't know where to start, would you share this episode with them? This podcast grows almost entirely through word of mouth, and every share helps someone realize that gardening doesn't have to be complicated or overwhelming. It can be gentle, it can fit real life, it can start right where they are. And if you're listening and wondering what kind of gardener you are, or what your next best step actually is, I created a free quiz to help with that. It's called the Growzona Quiz, and it helps you figure out your gardening style, your biggest challenges, and what will actually work for your season of life. Whether you're a total beginner or just need clarity, you can take it at vibrantrainbowgardens.com/quiz. And I will send you personalized guidance right after. Thank you for being here, for listening, and for helping this little garden of a podcast grow. I'll see you in the next episode.